Hello, welcome to another Pitt post-game show from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We are your hosts, Christopher Carter, Noah Hiles, here at Cameron Indoor Stadium, where the Pitt Panthers just came in and knocked off the number 7 team in the country, 80-76 in an impressive performance. We're going to break down all of that here on the show, right here on the floor of the Duke Blue Devils. But first, I want to remind you, the show is brought to you by Mike's Beer Bar, the best bar in all of Pittsburgh. Go there to experience one of their 500 different available beers. 300 of those beers are local, 80 of those local beers available on tap. Noah, this is undoubtedly the best win of Pitt's season, but maybe the most impressive regular season win that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it might go down as Jeff Capel's best road win as a coach at Pitt. I mean, that's a huge win, a top 10 win on the road. First win at Cameron Indoor Stadium for the Panthers since 1979. Chris, the last time Pitt won here, the Pirates were winning World Series. That's how long it's been. But we'll get into the good, bad, and the ugly. I think the good, there are two obvious answers here. I'll start with the most obvious one. It's Blake Hinson. Where we're standing right now, I don't want to pick up the camera and ruin the tripod setup that we have, but we are standing right in front of where Blake Hinson jumped on the scorer's table after the game and let the Cameron Crazies get one final jeer in after arguably the best performance of his career. 24 points, 7 of 7 from behind the arc, perfect from three-point shooting, also chipped in 8 rebounds, and played some really good defense. He was on Filipowski. He played all over the court today. And, when your team's struggling, Chris, you look to your best player to bring you out of a rut. And he himself has been in a rut. But he found a way to get it done today. Blake Hinson, this is a legendary effort from him. This is the game that I think Pitt fans will remember him for when it's all said and done. There's been big moments throughout his time at Pitt, and there will probably be more big moments to come. But this one tonight is one of the greatest he's ever going to do.
No, absolutely. Blake really brought it on all sides. I also want to say on top of that, and we'll get to, the officiating part of this in a little bit, but I thought what was really impressive too was he got that fourth foul, I want to say with like 5 minutes left in the game. Duke kept going, went after him. He played contentious defense, was always up on Duke, was always up on Filipowski, and didn't get that fifth foul, and they needed him because he had 2 big free throws down the stretch there. My good, though, is Jaland Lowe, the freshman with ice in his veins, went off in this game. 17 points, 6 of 16, 2 of 5 from deep, but none bigger than the three-pointer he hit in the final minute against Kyle Filipowski. Got him on him, said it reminded him of a moment that he played in high school basketball, and he hits a dagger that silenced Cameron Indoor when Duke was just trying to fight their way back. But it's not just that moment, Noah. It was several times throughout the game. Jaland Lowe made the Pitt's offense worked the offense, stayed within the play, and looked like a veteran at times. The way that he was saying, hey, we're going to run this offense, showing toughness, being able to create for other people. That was huge in this game. He also had 6 assists. Remarkable effort from a freshman who we were wondering at the start of the season, what's his role in this team going to be when Bub Carrington was going off. Bub Carrington, not a terrible game, was 3 of 9 from the field, had 9 points, fouled out. But Jaland Lowe, clearly right now, is the next best player on the team to Blake Hinson.
Yeah. We'll get into the bad now. And there's not a lot of negative to say for Pitt. So I'll say they needed a win bad. And I want to be clear, this is a great victory. It does not change where Pitt is at. Right. That much. Yeah. I mean, I expect them, they're going to go up in Ken Palm and net, but not by a ton. This is a quad 1 win, the first one they've had. And like I said, this is one of the better road wins for any team in the country. I mean, they beat Duke in Cameron Indoor. That doesn't happen often. Duke's 9-2 this year on this floor. Their other losses to Arizona. Yeah. So, I mean, that's rare company to be in. But they just needed a win bad to get back into rhythm. I mean, they have 3 games this week. 2 more games this week, I should say, at Georgia Tech, at Miami. They're both road contests. Going into those with this momentum was needed. So that's my bad. What's your bad?
My bad is the foul trouble. And listen, we will get into the officiating in a second here. But the fact that Pitt, what could have lost Pitt this game was the guys that they weren't able to put on the floor at different points. Fede Federico fouled out late. He had 3 fouls by early in the second half. 4 fouls by, I'd say, like, 8 minutes to go, and he hung in there until the end, until he was fouled out. Bub Carrington also fouled out in this game. Blake Hinson had finished the game with 4 fouls. And listen, they managed it well. And I will also say this shows how deep of a Pitt team this is now compared to past years, where if 2 guys got fouled out like this, 2 starters in Carrington and Federico, Pitt's teams used to be done under Capel because they just didn't have the depth. They responded to it well. And part of the bad, though, I do have to say, was very one-sided officiating in several parts of this game. The foul that, listen, the technical, we don't know what Blake Hinson said.
Oh, he
admitted it, but you could also see he was like, I'm going to say the right thing because we won. I'm not going to get myself in more trouble. But the charge call that he dropped to get his 4th foul was utterly ridiculous. He planted himself 3 seconds before the guy even got to the lane. He was out of the circle. There were several calls that went against Pitt, but here is what made this important. Pitt didn't buckle. They had several times where they said, you know what? It doesn't matter what's called on the floor. It doesn't matter. We control our own destiny. And I think that is a mature response from a team that needed to show maturity in a big way.
Yeah, I'm never one to really point out poor officiating. I just think it's part of the game, and it's especially part of the game here. That's just how it goes. I mean, when you win in Cameron Indoor, this atmosphere is going to, it's psychological stuff. It's going to force the refs to have a quick whistle on one end more than the other. That's just how it is. And that's how you win here. You overcome stuff like that. And like you said, Chris, they did. We'll get into the ugly now. I'll say this, Pitt made it ugly for Kyle Filipowski. Yeah. He entered this game averaging 25.3 points a game in 3 career contests against Pitt, and they made it tough for him. Not one made field goal until till under 3 minutes left in the first half. Yeah. He finished with 19 points and 5 rebounds. That's by far the worst game he's had against the Panthers. Yeah. And of those 19 points, I mean, they were tough, hard-earned buckets. He, as my buddy alluded to, might have got a couple of calls down low, especially early in the second half. But they made him work for everything that he had today. And I think it was a little easier to key on him without Jeremy Roach and Mark Mitchell around. But that's what you got to do. Yeah. When he was the sole focus, and he should have been the sole focus anyway, if we're being real, because that's been the guy that's beat them all 3 previous times. That's just how it went. They made it ugly for Filipowski, and it played a big role in the victory.
It absolutely did, and I think that's part of it. It was a team effort to do so. Capel credited Federico at the end of the game. He said, hey, we wanted to start him. We wanted to get something out of him, and we needed him early on because when Federico was on him, they didn't have to double-team Filipowski, and that was so huge for their defense to combat what Duke likes to do at all parts of the floor. So big effort there. My ugly, though, is what Cameron Indoors, the Cameron Crazies, looked like when Blake Hinson came for him. Because after the game, like Noah said, he plops right about where this tripod is at right now. He gets up on the table, yelling at the crowd, and you see them feeding it back to him. But even before that, you could tell that the Cameron Crazies weren't sure what they were in for with Blake Hinson. There was at one point early in the game, if you follow me on Twitter, you know something I do. Whenever Blake hits a big shot, I say, Blake Hinson, yeet alert, because there's sometimes he just does yeet, and that ball goes in. And at one point, I tweeted that out early after he hit an early shot, and one of the Duke fans said, I saw not too many people like that post yet. And I said, well, it's early. And that was his first three-pointer. 7 3-pointers later, it was like the 6th one where he hit it contested. A defender was in his face at the shot clock buzzer, and that same fan was like, what in the world is that? And I say, that is a Blake Hinson yeet alert. And you could tell the Duke fans were having it. They were flipping them off. They were using lots of colorful language. That was a ridiculous scene, and I think it was a really good moment for this program and a confidence boosting moment for this team. You saw the way also when we were talking to the players, Jaland Lowe, talking to Blake Hinson, and as Blake Hinson was talking, more of his teammates were walking by and they were all crediting him. When Blake Hinson is on, this whole team feels it, and this shows what he can do when he's on, because he's a real leader, and this team gets behind him in those moments.
Well said. Couldn't say it any better myself. I'll let you disappear off the screen here so we can hit the end button on this video. But I think that's all we got for this one. A big win for Pitt. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap it up here?
Absolutely. And listen, Pitt cannot afford to lax off on this. Pitt cannot afford to just go into Georgia Tech and riding this wave and thinking, oh, it's just gonna. They have to come back. They have to stay focused, get back on their matchups, to do things like that. But a win like this can turn a young team around, and this is a young team. We'll see how they build off of it. Read all our work at post-gazette.com. Check us out here on your favorite podcasting platform or on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all the content we produce here from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris, Carter, and Noah Hiles. Remember, this show is sponsored by Mike's Beer Bar, the best bottle of Pittsburgh. 500 different available beers. 300 of those beers are local. 80 of those local beers available on tap. We'll see you again here on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's podcast channel. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.